Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore-Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got it!
Another one! Another one!
Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three in.
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat here for another day on this Tuesday. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com as well. John, the producer, at the wheel. A great day ahead as always. Mike DeCourcy will be joining us from the Sporting News and as a Big Ten analyst, Chronic Hoosier. And Coach Mike Davis, former Indiana coach Mike Davis, now up at Detroit Mercy, just won his 400th game. So congratulations to him. He'll be along, and we'll talk to him about that, see how things are going with him. And Antoine is, man, he's one of the leading scorers in the country. I haven't checked to see how that's going this year, but hope everybody's day has started off well, and if not, we can get it headed in that direction. A lot to get to. Forgot to congratulate Evansville Mater Day yesterday. For those of you listening on the ref, WREF, always the right call down in Evansville. They won the 2H state championship football over the weekend. We'll talk more about that tomorrow when Kyle Nedrep joins us from the Indy Star. We'll talk about all the state champion winners. But, yeah, that happened. So congratulations, Evansville Mater Day, and everybody else. Number 5, Indiana women's basketball. Man, how about the tournament they played in out in Las Vegas? It has drawn a lot of ire. It looked kind of weird. There's a lot of tournaments that are played in ballrooms, Dustin. The people, a lot of times they don't realize it just because of the setup. Because once they get in there and it's dark and the lights or everything's set up, you can't really tell it's in a ballroom. But that one was like a small ballroom with no seats, no seating for fans, no scoreboard, apparently no EMTs available. It was just terrible. So yeah, that's been a lot of grief over that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think maybe the Battle for Atlantis is also played in a ballroom. There's a couple different of these multi-team tournaments that are played in those ballrooms. But the difference is in the men's side, you usually bring in bleachers. You can't, like you said, you can't tell the difference. You just think it's in a small basketball arena. But with this, it looked like they were playing in the. You remember where they used to have the Big Ten Media Days in Chicago, the bottom of that hotel in downtown Chicago? That's what it looked like to me. Yep. And that's unacceptable, especially when you don't have the medical personnel. You don't have any bleachers for any fans. You just had basically a bunch of folding chairs sitting around the court. It was egregiously bad. So it's catching ire for all the right reasons, I would say. You had players getting injured. You didn't have proper medical attention. We thought we nixed this thing in the bud a few years ago with the NCAA tournament when you saw the discrepancies between the weight room and the availability for that sort of stuff between the men's and women's tournaments a few years ago, I think maybe 2020. But clearly that's still an issue. But hopefully they get this addressed, or maybe the site's not going to host any more tournaments. I don't know what the result is, but that's going to get plenty of attention probably for the rest of the season, I would guess.
Well, no, I think it'll die because there's no point in talking about it anymore. But those people have some answering to do, and I'm not sure if they'll have that tournament again. And if they do, they're going to be hard pressed to get good quality opponents to come out there. Let's see, the new AP polls out. Guess who's number 1? Kelvin Sampson and Houston. At the top, baby. I'm sure that'll make a lot of Indiana fans. I could care less. I couldn't care less.
No.
I could care less. I couldn't care less.
You couldn't.
I could not care less whether or not I don't care about Kelvin Sampson.
I think
I really don't. You know, I mean, here's the thing. He got in trouble for making stupid ass phone calls. He wasn't paying players. He wasn't doing what I call cheating. He was freaking making phone calls. A rule that was so stupid that they changed the next year. You know what? I don't care. That does not. I think people just like to be pissed off about stuff when it doesn't go their way.
Yeah.
And they like to find the person to pin it on. Indiana basketball is not in a bad position because of Kelvin Sampson. I can tell you that. Indiana basketball, and right now they're not in a bad position, but they didn't go through that period because of Kelvin Sampson. They went through the period. There should be a name for it. That darkness period. But they went through that period because of the administration and the stupid ass hires, the way that they've done things. I blame the administration for everything. They are the ones that make these decisions.
I think for the most part, most fans are probably over this. They probably don't care as much about it as they used to. But I do think that the one thing I think you can say about why it might still be a little frustrating for some fans is to see him be successful and for Indiana to have to go through. I mean, he basically, I don't know what his punishment was. I'd have to hit the button on the Wayback Machine to remember. But he went and he had an assistant coaching job with the Milwaukee Bucks, and then he returned to the college game pretty quickly, if I remember correctly. So for him to have
he had to sit out he had a show cause.
Right. And so I think for him to come back and be successful, it's a little bit of a hard pill to swallow for some fans, especially since Indiana's still trying to get up to national prominence. But that's ever since those first couple years after his departure, I think that's, like you said, that's on Indiana, not necessarily Kelvin Sampson. But I can understand a little bit of it, but I think most of it has gone away at this point. I think most fans have moved on. They're excited about Mike Woodson. They're in a good spot now. They got one of the deepest teams in the Big Ten. They're knocking on the door of being, nationally relevant again. So I think now it's all water under the bridge.
Well, speaking of the AP Top 25, Indiana makes it into the top 10 for the first time in a few years. Probably 15, 16 since they were in the top 10?
Well, no, they were in the top. They were number one in 2012 or 13, right?
Yeah, that's what I just said. They haven't been in the top 10 since.
You said 15 or 16 years. It's been more recent than that.
Since 2015 or 16.
Oh. Gotcha.
Yeah, I was trying. It was about then. But they're back into the top because there was a stat that no 4-year IU player had not been made into the top 10 going back maybe, I don't know, 30 years. But I think that streak got snapped because of Archie. Seriously.
That's shocking, isn't it?
Nothing is shocking. You want to talk about a dark period.
Yeah.
That's what you could call it. The dark period.
The dark ages, yep.
The
dark arch.
The dark arch. But Indiana moved into the top 10, so we're going to have let's see, where is North Carolina? Where do they drop to?
I think they're out of the top 10.
Yes, they are, and they're out of that. Oh, they're 18th. Yeah. Wow. Man, how do you go from number 1 to 18?
You lose 2 games.
You lose 2 games, exactly. A little surprising though, but it's not just because they lost 2 games. They hadn't looked all that solid.
No.
Yet. But here's some just to pump up some IU fans right now. You've got Kansas right in front of them. They dropped 6 spots, but they're number 9. Arizona, future opponent, number 4. Virginia with former Indiana player Armand Franklin playing very well for them, by the way. They're number 3 at 5-0. Guess who they play next? At Michigan.
There you go.
Michigan has not been playing very well.
No, they've not been that impressive so far this season. I mean, they had to go to overtime against Eastern Michigan. They got boat raced by Arizona State. They only beat Ohio by 4. I mean, we thought Michigan might be at the top of the Big Ten. They do not look like it. They're going to have to make some serious adjustments and get better in a hurry if they're going to be even in the middle, because they look like one of the bottom tier teams right now.
If I've noticed, I found an answer to a question I asked Miller Kopp a while back, kind of funny with his answer. I was asking about it. What did he do to work on his shooting over the summer? And he gave an answer about working on his tan and his golf swing, which that may have been completely legit, which I'm sure it was. But there's also been, it's been made aware to us that the players were also being given words by the players themselves to the guys that were going into the pressers that they had to work into the press conference. Someone had chicken. I think it may have been Miller Kopp the other day. And I remember this was after the Miami game at Indianapolis. He gave an answer to something about the freshmen, and it was pretty funny. And at the time I was like, what the hell? And now it all makes sense. But yeah, it was kind of funny. They've been given, like, when they're being sent in to the pressers, the other players say, all right, your word is, chicken or whatever. And they have to work that in. Here's a clip to give you an idea. Here's Miller Kopp from after the Miami game talking about the freshmen.
I mean, he puts the work in. It's one of those things where, it may not, we've all been through it as players, but, you put the work in and sometimes it doesn't show, right when you want it to. It's like, marinating chicken, like you need to, let it sit maybe 6-8 hours in the fridge maybe, and then you put it on the grill and it, tastes a lot better like that. So it's going to come and the dude works his butt off. So I'm not worried about that.
It was funny. You can see Tamar Bates trying not to laugh when he talks about it too.
I'm telling you, I was like, what the hell? So there you go. There's the answer to that. I was like one of the last to figure out, since I'm not a student or all that old. But I asked someone, is like, is something going on here? And yeah. So there you go. Pretty funny. I thought it was funny at least. But yeah, it's a good way to work that one in.
Yeah,
because he's sitting there thinking. The thing is, he's sitting there thinking, how am I going to do this? Because you're sitting there, you have to answer the question and keep talking while you're thinking of how you're going to work that into your answer. And pretty quick thinking by Mr. Kopp.
Yeah, that was you could see the wheels turning there as he was trying to come up with some sort of way to slip that in. So that's awesome. But you know what that tells me more than anything? That those are guys that enjoy being around each other. They're having a lot of fun. You don't see that with teams that don't have good chemistry.
Dustin, I want to play. You weren't here when we did this yesterday. I want to play the Tamar Bates trombone clip, which is the same style of answer. So here this is.
I got an army behind me, so my family does a great job when she's back home with them, and so it really just takes a lot of stress off of me. But it's really just like, for us, it was a situation that was unexpected, so we really just tried to find our sound, kind of like a trombone player, when they take it out the case and they trying to slide it and they find that right sound. We just found that right sound, and we just playing music now.
They're just playing music now.
It makes the press conferences must watch.
I'm telling you, it makes it hilarious because I'm like, what? What the hell is he talking about? A trombone is not the instrument I'm going to think of.
No.
When I'm thinking about an instrument making great music, it's not a trombone. But see, that was the word he was given.
Yep, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna go back and see. Miller's was chicken. Xavier had dinosaurs.
Did he actually use it? Because I don't know that I have it. If he did,
we'd have to go back and listen. But yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that trombone was Tamar's. So we'll see if that continues now that the secret's out. I'm not sure, but we've got lots coming up on the program today. Coach Mike Davis is going to join us later on. Mike DeCourcy joins us next. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from BB's Market, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Make sure you go to Endeavor Hospitality's Now Network and sign up for the Wow Club. Start earning Wow rewards today. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting...
Man, I hope Indiana wins a lot because I feel like that's not going to happen after losses. And that is hilarious. Good morning, Mike.
Morning, gentlemen. How are you?
We're great. How are you? Well, I can't speak for Jim, I guess.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm just sitting here laughing because we're going over the IU basketball players, Mike. Had a thing going on with the media that they were giving each player that went into the presser was given a word that they had to use in the press conference. Trombone. Tamar Bates had trombone. And how he worked it in was magical.
Wow.
Miller Kopp had chicken, and we just played the clip. He talked about the freshmen being like marinating chicken, and you had to marinate it. It was like, yeah, it's kind of funny now that you know after the fact, because there was a couple times I'm like going, what the hell are they talking about? Now I know. Now you know the rest of the story.
Are the U.S. going to win today, Mike?
I think they will.
What about, did you listen to the question that the Iran reporter was asking Greg Berhalter about why they haven't moved the naval ships or something out of the country?
I heard that, and I was really offended, and when the Iranian manager and player came in, there was applause in the room, and I've been in those rooms, at the World Cup even, and it doesn't happen. I mean, just and then for that to happen, it's just absurd. If I were there, I don't know how I would have reacted, but I'm sure I would have at least shot the guy a nasty stare. The person, I don't know if it was man or woman. I didn't hear the question. I only read it.
I missed it. What happened?
Go ahead, John.
Well, there was an Iranian reporter. Let's see how much time we have left. We got 20 seconds. Who asked the head soccer coach, the U.S. soccer coach, why he hasn't asked the U.S. government if they haven't moved their naval ships from outside of their territory or something. And said something else. He asked the captain about, here, I can't get into it, but we're coming back. So
this segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you high atop the 18th fairway from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Joined now by our good friend Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. Limited sleep because I was at Lucas Oil Stadium last night for Colt Steelers. So
wow. Oh man, big win for you. Late too, man. That one got a little scary until the clock mismanagement kind of saved things. But the Steelers come away with one, and Mr. Pickett looking like is he going to be the quarterback of the future for the Steelers?
Well, that's what they think. He's got a ways to go. It's interesting to see in person, what you think on television. The Steelers don't run a single route over the middle of the field. It's amazing. They run everything to the hashes and out, and because they don't want him to throw interceptions. So, and to me, it's like at a certain point, if you don't allow him to develop as a quarterback, how is he going to develop as a quarterback? But he did some good things. I mean, the 2-point pass that he threw to to George Pickens that made it 27. Was that what it was, or 24-17? He that took it from 22 to 24 and at least put them a touchdown ahead. It was a great play, and he needed to be nimble, he needed to be smart, and he needed to have a great idea of how to throw Pickens open, and he did all that. So it was good in that sense, and it was nice being there. It's one of the great places in America to watch a football game. There are very few that are in the class of Lucas Oil in that sense. So it was a really pleasant night.
And the Steelers are one of the unique situations because they practiced next to Kenny Pickett for as long as Kenny Pickett was there, because the Steelers and Pitt, their practice facilities are right. They share them, I think, right? They're together, the same.
Yeah, it's the same building. Yeah, I think they have separate, facilities, but I think the building itself, where you're actually playing football, is one singular place. The Steelers do most of their work early, late morning, early afternoon, and then Pitt comes in after school, so to speak.
Big match coming up today for the U.S. I know you're all into the World Cup, keeping you busy. This has got to be a busy time for you. World Cup and basketball happening.
Yes. This is unbelievable part of my life. Absolutely.
How fun is tomorrow night going to be then? Is there any U.S. or any good thing U.S. isn't playing tomorrow night? Indiana playing North Carolina in that big match as well. But today the U.S. takes on Iran. But before we get to that, I know there was a lot of goofiness happening in the pressers. John, you're welcome to come in, but I missed all that. What happened?
Well, the one thing that I didn't get to say during the break, the same reporter who I believe talked to the U.S. manager also asked the U.S. captain Tyler Adams how he felt playing for a country that is, has heightened racism and stuff like that. And it was, Mike, I know you heard some of it as well. What were your kind of initial thoughts on somebody having the wherewithal to ask that kind of stuff?
Well, it's disgraceful to take that into a press conference. It's because that's not a reporter's question. I mean, in that venue. I mean, yes, there's racism here, and it's bad, and obviously we need to do better. And I'm sure Tyler Adams has experienced that in his life, without a doubt. But that venue is first of all, given that he asked Greg Berhalter about moving, why he hasn't asked the president, whether it would be President Trump before or President Biden now, to move warships from certain places in the Middle East, it shows the absurdity of this, that it wasn't a reporter's exercise, it was a propagandist exercise. So it's offensive in that front. And on the other hand, I mean, when I once asked a strategic question that the Dutch coach didn't like, and he threw me back a question. So, I mean, in order to avoid an international incident, I'm sure that Greg Berhalter would have liked to have said, I can't put any words in his mouth, but if I were Greg Berhalter, I might have wanted to say, well, why, ask about the problems that have happened in Iran since September, when the young woman was died more or less in police custody after she was allegedly arrested for not conforming to the Iran women's dress code. That seems like pretty extreme to me. So, I wrote a piece. I talked to Kobe Jones of Fox Sports and the U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer, who is the most capped player in the history of the men's national team, about what it was like to play against Iran in '98 when things were really bad then. I mean, because we were 20 years closer, 25 years closer to the hostage crisis and the overthrow of the Shah and all of that, when there was real, there was actual, activity going on instead of just, we don't like them, that kind of thing. And he said that, it really on the field, he just wanted it to be about soccer, that they wanted to play that game and win it. And they did not. They played poorly and lost, but he wanted it to be about that. And he was hopeful that would be the direction that this would take. And then, of course, yesterday sort of threw that off.
I forgot to mention this earlier too. The same reporter began his question when he was talking to Tyler Adams, talking about how disrespectful it was that he didn't pronounce Iran correctly. I guess he said Iran initially. They tried to make him feel guilty for not knowing the correct pronunciation of the country, which is, it's like they're just finding a little points to make them feel as belittled as possible.
They're just ignorant. It's just they show their ignorance of the situations and all of that, and what their agenda is. It's just an agenda driven apparatus. They don't have sports in Iran, really. They don't have real sports reporters. They don't have a clue what they're doing. So they send these guys in. They're just operatives of the state, basically. If you don't write a good story in Iran, they cut your hands off, man. That's the punishment there. So I'd ask that. So what happens when a reporter writes a bad story? Boom. Oh, well, silliness. But today is this afternoon, the action getting back to the match, the U.S. has to win this match.
Yes,
Mike.
Yes. First of all, I don't think that actually is true. But because I think everybody that's on board is on board, so to speak. But you're right. They do need to win today, and it's not a bad position for them to be in. I mean, Iran I think they're the 20th ranked team in the world, so this is a good team. But let's not forget that England put 6 goals past them in the opener, and the U.S. was able to hold England to 0, as well as the fact that Iran went basically 85 minutes, 82 minutes, something like that, and was unable to score on Wales until Wales's goalkeeper committed an error, got himself thrown out of the game, and then Iran was playing against 10 men and was then able to get two goals in the final few minutes.
Stoppage time, correct?
I'm sorry?
Were both goals in stoppage time?
I believe one was at 92 and one was at 96 or something like that. It was a long stoppage because they had to check for the penalty for the foul on the red card foul on the goalkeeper. So there was a long stoppage. So there was a lot of stoppage time, and like I said, one went at 92, so they would have gotten a goal on a normal stoppage time, and then the second on the extended time because of the stoppage.
How does a goalkeeper get kicked out of the game, out of the match?
Well, he ran off his goal line to try to intercept the ball that was coming forward, and the Iran player was close to it, and the Wales goalie lifted his leg and basically hit the offensive player with the leg. So a straight red card is what it was. After originally ruled a yellow card, but then when they watched it, it was viewed as a straight red card, and he was thrown out.
Wow!
Think of it as targeting. It was like targeting.
Have you, as long as you've covered that, have you seen it before? A goalie getting a red? I've never heard of a goalie getting a red card, man. I don't have the experience, but
I've seen it happen before, absolutely. And a lot of them are that one was really far out of the penalty area, which is rare. Most red card to goalies is when a goalie's one-on-one with a player and there's no one behind the goalie, and it's called denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity, and it's abbreviated as DOGSO. And so when that happens, if the keeper does that, then there's a good chance he's going to be ejected. So it's not that rare, but the way his happened was it doesn't happen often that a goalie gets nailed that far out of the penalty area.
Are you expecting a win today?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, they have not inspired with their attack so that one would feel confident that they're going to get the goals that they need. When they did, they have had opportunities. One of the things I've noticed about some of the goals that have happened in this World Cup, the U.S. doesn't shoot from long distance. They don't shoot from outside the box very often, and I think that's one of the things that causes them problems. That they're always kind of searching for the perfect play, sort of trying to walk the ball into the goal. They want everything to go right once they get the ball in that opportunity. And I think sometimes they need to shoot. And I'm not talking about recklessly and just firing away, but every now and then you've got to be able to take a shot from outside the box and challenge the keeper. And I mean, if you think back to some of the goals that were scored in 2014, Jermaine Jones's goal against Portugal is a good example. That shot was whipped in from 28 yards, something like that, 27 yards. And we've seen that happen with different teams. Lionel Messi's goal against Mexico on Saturday. Now, we don't have any Messis, don't get me wrong. But that was a goal that was fired from about 28 yards and was able to beat the Mexico keeper. We don't see a lot of those from the U.S. Last one I can remember was back last fall in the qualifiers that I can recall. And that was Serginho Dest up, I believe it was in Columbus. And I can't remember who the opponent was. I think it was Costa Rica. But we don't see very many of those. And I just think that would be something that if they did today, they might have some success with it.
Indiana men's soccer, they defeat Team Euro. So I was curious, does Marshall get a spot in the World Cup now?
Yeah. Marshall won. Don't forget that worked for them to win a championship, and they had a great year again this year. And I know.
Well, of course it wins. They probably got some 28-year-old guys on that team. Who knows?
I'm not sure about that. I don't think that's actually even allowed. I think
it's not, but I'm being a little facetious. But
but hey, it's great to see them moving along. How about that? I mean, there was a stat that Jeff Rabjohns had the other day that's like the 29th time they've been in the Elite Eight or something like that. That's an amazing.
It's
an
the
amazing
stat. It's the eighth straight.
Eighth in a row and 28th or 29th overall.
And that's a record. Of course, they've got all kinds of. There've been like 44 College Cups, Final Fours. They've been to 21 of them.
It's amazing.
That's the stat that's of all stats right there. Boom.
Yeah, and remember, it's not like just the whole John Wooden thing either. Remember when they won their 10 to 12, the tournament was completely geographically based. Now, so you had to go win the last two to get the championship, but your path to the Final Four was somewhat eased by the fact that you were just the West, and so you had to go beat Idaho State and then maybe UNLV or something like that. No, UNLV wasn't even good yet. Long Beach State when Tark was there, so you didn't have to always beat a lot of great opponents to get to the Final Four. That's not been the case in this. I mean, they opened up the men's soccer tournament a long time ago to geographically spreading teams out, moving teams around. So you got to beat everybody to get to do what IU soccer has done. It's been really amazing.
We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Mike DeCourcy is with us, of course, as is Dustin Schutte. We've got Indiana playing North Carolina and a lot of big games coming up. We're back with that right after this, brought to you by our good friends from GoTeen, a part of the WOW Club. Make sure you go to the WOW Network, sign up, start earning WOW rewards today. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's a deal.
And Mike, I have an unusually high optimism for today, solely based on the comments and kind of the hatred being thrown at the U.S. just because they just don't. People don't. At least people from that part of the world don't want them to win.
You know, I will say that they kind of gave Berhalter some stuff to work with that he didn't necessarily have on Saturday afternoon. You know, the U.S. Soccer Federation social media account did this thing with the Iran flag. That I don't know that I think it was the wisest move, but I understand and appreciate the sentiment, which was they're supportive of the protests for women's rights. So they altered the flag, the Iran flag, when they posted it on their social media site. And that got them in trouble with the Iran started saying they should be thrown out of the tournament.
That's right. Yeah.
For allegedly violating the FIFA charter. And so they kind of gave Iran something to work with there. But Iran's that press conference yesterday came right back and even that score. If Greg Berhalter wants to fire up the troops, the team, so to speak, he's got plenty to work with now.
You might get chippy today. You might see some interesting things on the.
Well, I think it will. I mean, especially Pulisic has to really watch because Iran was very physical in their match against Wales. There was another incident or whatever. Jurgen Klinsmann, who used to be the U.S. coach, is now working as an analyst for BBC, and he was on a panel show, and he ripped all over Iran for the physicality against Wales. So a lot of what happens today may be up to how the game is officiated, and. You know how when an actual sports rivalry game is played, a lot of times the refs are trying to keep it under control. So if they do that, if they try to keep this game under control, I think that's an advantage for the U.S.
Yeah,
U.S. is not as physical. They don't play it that way generally. I mean, they foul, everybody fouls, but they don't go out of their way.
All right. Sorry, Jim, I'm done with the soccer talk. Dustin.
.com. Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. I hope everyone's week has started off well. If not, hopefully we can keep making it better. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network is with us. Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com always as well. Mike, the new AP poll out, of course. Houston at the top with our old friend, Kelvin Sampson. First time since 1983. I guess Guy Lewis. The Cougs are at the top back in the oh man, those were some fun days. That was back in Houston and Louisville and North Carolina. I'm trying to think back in that run. Daggone it, who was it? That was Phi Slamma Jamma.
The team and Clyde Drexler and Larry Musa. Absolutely.
Jeez. Boy, that was a good time, a good run for them. But they've had a pretty daggone good run over the last couple of years. And Kelvin Sampson, I talked about this earlier. I know a lot of IU fans are still got the red eye. And I'm like, I couldn't care less about what he does, where he is. I don't care. But he's doing a hell of a job at Houston. I mean, that's not the easiest place to get a number one ranked basketball team these days, but he's done it. And it wasn't just this year. So he's doing a hell of a job down there.
He is. I will say this, and I have said this. I don't think I've ever said it directly to Kelvin, although I've written it where he could see it. I think he was a terrible hire for Indiana, but a phenomenal basketball coach. I was at Washington State where I first noticed him. I watched them play up there when he had Mark Hendrickson, and they were tremendous. And I'll be honest, at that point, when I was young in my college basketball coverage, I'd never been to Pullman and didn't know much about it, and didn't know, like, it's not easy to win there. And then I visited there for a game.
Not even easy to get there.
Right. I visited there. I was up in Spokane for a Gonzaga game on a Saturday against Stanford in 2006, I think it was, when they had Adam Morrison. And so myself and Andy Katz and I think Dick Weiss drove down from Spokane to Pullman, and it is not an easy place to get to, and it is not a place that a lot of people go out of their way to get to. And so to win basketball games there is really an accomplishment, and Kelvin showed that then, and then he did a great job at Oklahoma, and he was the exact wrong person to hire at Indiana at that time, especially under the circumstances he was in, where they had an active NCAA investigation, and so it wasn't going to please particular members of the Indiana alumni or fan base to do that, first of all. And then when things got a little sour, it became an escalated situation, and things happened at the IU basketball program that set it back for a decade. Even though Tom was able to get Victor and Cody and win that championship, I still believe that in general it set the program back a decade.
Easily.
Because it just stopped the program in its tracks. And like I said, Tom did a phenomenal job in getting them to a Big Ten title in the short period of time that he did, and to a number 1 seed. And but it just changed the way IU basketball, sort of its stature within college basketball when all of that went down in 2008. So I think they're still recovering from that. Although I think that, they're at a point now where they might be on, when you're starting to get 5-star guys in again, that's when you have the chance to be what you want to be. If you don't have those kinds of players, it's really hard to do that. So I'm glad to see that IU's been able to start to move in that direction. It goes back, obviously, to Trace, to Romeo before him, Trace, and now the two that they have on the team now, in addition to Trace. You're starting to see a team that is capable of challenging anyone. And so tomorrow night, what's interesting about that matchup is that it's not what we expected it to be. It's still as challenging a game as it ever was.
It may be more dangerous. I told someone yesterday, I said, hey, man, they may be more dangerous because they've gotten beaten. They may be more hungry. It may have woken them up. It may have made them mad. Whatever you need to generate that in yourself, they've got it.
Yeah. It's not a new phenomenon, because the nature of college basketball, the best teams work to be great from the beginning of practice and all of that. That's how you get there. But there are certain teams, and I think this was true of Carolina 2009, that they felt like, we know we're better than everybody else, and they didn't really start working on getting great. They were what they were, very, 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 very good day one, and they didn't really start working on getting great until probably January, February of that year, maybe when they saw Duke in the horizon. And then eventually they became one of the great championship teams of the last 25 years. I think this team had the handicap of knowing they were bad last year. They got beat 30, 20, 25 plus, I think 5 different times or something like that. Kentucky did it. Miami did it. Wake did it. Maybe I don't have the exact right numbers. They lose to Pitt in early February of last year. Pitt won, I think, 6 ACC games. They lose on their home court to that team, and they still go out and make the final. I think that's an obstacle that you have to overcome. You think, well, we'll get to it. We'll get there. I think that's an obstacle to overcome. And now that switch could have flipped on Sunday or Monday when they got into practice. Like, okay, enough of this fooling around. Now it's time to play, because we've seen what happens when we don't. That's part of it. But the other part of it is they don't have any depth right now. They've got 5 guys that are playing, and all their 5 starters, at least from an offensive standpoint, have been fine. Not sure they've all been at their level, but they've been fine. But there hasn't been anything beyond that. They have Puff Johnson, a kid from Pittsburgh who was the sixth or seventh man, maybe 8th man last year, who's a big wing who can play it as a small 4. He missed a lot of preseason with an injury. He's a really good shooter. Could potentially become an excellent shooter. And he missed a lot of their preseason with, I think it was a knee. And so on Sunday, when they played Alabama in the consolation out in Portland, and they went, I think, 105-101 in 4 OTs. He finally played 40-plus minutes, and he scored 10 points. So at least they now maybe feel like they have a 6th guy to go with the 5 regulars.
Dustin, Indiana's strength of schedule, man, is going to take a skyrocket this year. 7 different opponents currently in the top 25, 3 in the top 10 that are coming up. So that's definitely going to jack your numbers up.
Yeah, we're going to see what this team is made of when you've got North Carolina, Kansas, Arizona, and by the way, you've still got Rutgers and Nebraska in Big Ten play coming up. So I wanted to ask Mike, I know we're early in the season, just a couple weeks in here, but has there been a team that stood out to you more than some of the others? Because I think coming into this season, there was an idea that it was Indiana, Illinois, and then maybe the rest of the pack, maybe Michigan State creeps in there. But the way Wisconsin has played, especially defensively, they look pretty good. Iowa's done some good things early in the season. Maryland, I remember Stephen Bardo, your colleague at Big Ten Network, came on during Big Ten Media Days and said Maryland's going to be a team that's a dark horse. Watch out for them. They've got some guys. They're in the top 25. So has there been a team or a couple teams that have stood out to you most here in the early going of the season?
Well, I always thought Purdue was going to be really good. I'm not surprised. I've said from the beginning that obviously you'd love, and I think I even said that to you guys a week or two ago, that you love to have Jaden Ivey. He's a game changer, and you can't have enough of those kinds of guys if you can get them.
If they had Jaden Ivey, they'd probably be the number 1 team right now.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. But what I'll say is that with the exception of losing a talent like that, being in the position they are now is an advantage over where they were a year ago. I strongly believe they had too many good players last year, and that it's really hard to manage that. And I've never seen anybody really carry that all the way home. Kentucky 15 had 2 starting lineups that could have won the championship if you took them and gave them 2 good reserves. Either one of those starting lineups would have been in contention for the championship. And put together, they didn't win it. They won every other game until they played Wisconsin in the semis, but then they couldn't overcome that. It's just hard to do when you have that. Now we've got a normal rotation. The young players are, young and so there's still things that they have to learn. Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, but they're played really well. They've done some really good things, and they've gotten to the point now where Zach Edey is really incorporated in what they do, instead of, okay, now we're doing this and now we're doing that, which is what they did last year when they had Travion Williams. Two completely different teams, because now, of course, you're still a little different when Zach goes out now, because he can't play 40 minutes. But before it was team A, team A. Now it's, okay, this is our team with Zach, and this is what we have to do to fill in while we don't have Zach. And so that's kind of it's a different approach in that way. And I think it works better for team flow and chemistry. And so I'm not surprised at all that they're really good. Now, am I surprised they went out and clocked Duke by 20? Yeah, a little bit surprised. But the league itself, here's what's going to happen. I don't know what the number is going to be, but we're going to get to March, and they're going to have done all this stuff. And I don't know how this week will go, but to date, everything has been phenomenal from the Big Ten. But we'll get to March, and people will be complaining that they're getting 8 or 9 teams, as if this all did not happen. Right. Of course, it's happening. The scores are right there. And that doesn't guarantee you that you then go play well in March. And my theory has been that it actually maybe hurts you to have a league like that when all of a sudden you think Maryland, new coach, weren't very good last year. Okay, they come into our gym, we'll house them, it'll be a W. Nope. That game's going to be a hard game. Penn State building under a new coach, second year. That'll be a game. They come in their gym. We get nope. You're going to have to play. So you're not going to have many of those nights in this league where you can just say, we're home. Let the crowd do most of the work. We put out our B effort, C effort, and we'll be fine. Now that's been the problem in the Big Ten over the last couple of years. They have not had those nights.
Michigan has an opportunity. They have not looked. A lot of us thought that they were going to be one of the top teams in this league this year, and they have not looked that part up till now. Great opportunity coming for them as the Virginia Cavaliers come to visit, 5-0, and Virginia is playing really, really good basketball. There's probably I don't know who the true number one team is right now. It could be Houston. It could be Texas. It could be Virginia. It could be Purdue. I don't know. But Virginia is in that mix of teams right now.
Well, I don't look at that as a great opportunity. I look at that as hell on earth trying to go against those guys, man, especially at this time of year. And especially, when you think about it, what has been difficult for this Michigan team is that they are young. If they had Caleb Houston back and Moussa Diabate back, they would be what is now passes in college basketball for a veteran team. If you got sophomores who played your veteran team, well, they don't have that because those guys left. Now they have Hunter Dickinson, but a lot of the players around them fairly young. Jet Howard, Coach Juwan Howard's son, very talented player and has done some very good things. But it's still a process. And I think if you look at it, that's part of why their schedule to this point has leaned toward, let's build this thing. Let's get it right. And it's been pretty good for the most part. I mean, the Pitt team that played Northwestern last night, Michigan beat them by 30. And then, Michigan, for whatever reason, whether it was having to turn around on one day's notice or Arizona State had a great game, did basically the same thing to the Wolverines. This was not a team that I was super enthusiastic about because of the loss of Diabate and Caleb Houston. I had them, I think, in my Final Four preseason top 25, the one we do basically while the Final Four is going on, then publish the day of the championship game or the day after. I have Michigan like number 3 because I thought those guys were no way going to leave. And I turned out to be right because they were not first round picks. And so that's hurting this team, and they're having to repair more than they may be expected to.
And
go ahead.
One of the things, Mike, this is going to be the last year for the Big Ten ACC Challenge. I was curious. Do you think in any regard that hurts the league? I mean, to be quite honest, I felt like the last couple of years, ESPN's gotten a little lazy with some of these matchups. I mean, I think Purdue has played Florida State 4 times in the last 5 years. It seems like Indiana's just playing North Carolina or Duke on a rotation at some point. Like, these were losing interest. ESPN was just basically saying, all right, yep, let's whatever you want. We'll just lazy up these matchups. I find more value almost in whether it's the Phil Knight Legacy or Maui Invitational or something along those lines. Do you think the Big Ten is now going to go out and maybe schedule more of these multi-team events in place of the Big Ten ACC Challenge?
You can only play in one, Dustin.
Okay.
So if I'm IU, I can only play in one. Now, I don't know if they did or not. I know Calipari doesn't like them, and he never plays in multi-team events.
Okay.
But I think that these have value because they get one of the great values of these. Again, I think we've talked about this before. My crusade for the season ticket holder. These get good games in your gym for your season ticket holders and your student fans to see Carolina or, Florida State and Duke has been a lazy matchup. I agree with that. And this year it's not going to be a very good game. Shouldn't be. Purdue should win that fairly easily, but it's created some really good games over the years. Especially some of the trips Purdue took down to Tallahassee. They were great games. Florida State's program's fallen off a little bit last year in this, but they've been some great games. So so I would look for the league to get a challenge series, maybe with the Big 12.
Okay.
Now you already have the Gavitt games, and they need to get that re-upped, especially now that the Big East is a Fox Net is a Fox affiliated league. This now you're going to have the Big Ten be a Fox affiliated league foremost. So keep that alive, and then the Big 12 now has a Fox deal. So make one with them and make that happen. The Big 12 has been over the last decade a better basketball league than the ACC anyway. And now the difference, of course, is that there will be 12 members of the Big 10 of the Big 12, strangely enough, as of next year. So there'll be some teams that won't be able to participate, whereas in the ACC it was only one ACC team that couldn't be included. So there's a little bit of an unbalance there, but I think I think these games really are good. These series really are good for that purpose. And if you're not in one of them and others are, you're missing out on that. So the word I read yesterday, I can't remember who, and I apologize for not knowing who reported, but that they're going to work on an ACC challenge. I know Andy Katz had a lot of news on this yesterday, so it may have been him that I read from. The ACC is going to go ACC, SEC. The SEC already has one with the Big 12. I think that one's going away. So there's your chance, just jump right in there. And losing Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. Okay. All right. So you get Cincinnati, which a little bit down, but has been up, won that league multiple times, has a great history. Houston is in its current state. Houston right now is as good as anybody. Certainly that's UCF still has some potential, and BYU has been a really good basketball program over the last 25 years or so. They've had National Player of the Year. They've had really good teams. They haven't done a lot of deep exploration of the NCAA tournament, but they've been really good. So I think the Big 10, Big 12 challenge would be a great replacement for the ACC.
I like that phrase, deep exploration of the NCAA tournament. I might have to steal that at some point in the season. That's an excellent. I love that.
Real quick, we didn't talk about, but what are you expecting from Indiana, North Carolina tomorrow night?
Well, I first of all, I think the fans will that this is what they've been waiting for a while, for their team to be highly ranked with a Final Four team on their floor. I think the fans are really going to be engaged. It's a hard cover. Those five guys are a hard cover. You have to work really hard defensively to slow them down. And sometimes, as Caleb Love showed in the Sweet 16 against UCLA last year, you can do everything you want. He'll just step farther back. He's had those days in the biggest games. So it's a hard cover, but Indiana has to use its depth well, wisely, smartly, because that's a huge advantage for them over Carolina, as I mentioned before. So it begins with defense, and then they're going to have to do some things with Trace, because he'll more than likely, when he's in the post, be guarded by Armando Bacot, who is long and tall and quick off his feet and really energetic. And that's been hard for Trace in the post at times. Players who have that great length. Miles Johnson was always a problem for Trace when he was at Rutgers. And he's not even dynamic or gets off his feet that well. He just used the length. So they're going to have to be creative with how they get Trace the ball, where they get him the ball, so that they can get him good scoring opportunities.
Yeah, Indiana's going to hopefully use their depth to overcome the lack thereof for North Carolina as they go about 6.5 deep, I think I would call it. But so much we didn't even get to talk about. We'll talk about next time. Luke Fickell and Matt Rule both into the Big Ten now. Big stories there with Luke Fickell going to Wisconsin and Matt Rule going to Nebraska. The Big Ten West looking to shore up that side of things, man, although the divisions are going away. But it's big news for those guys coming into the league.
Absolutely. Luke Fickell's a phenomenal football coach. To get Cincinnati into the playoff last year was a incredible achievement because because they basically you had to put a case on the field that was undeniable because they didn't want them. They don't want an off-brand school in that Final Four of the college football playoff. They don't want them. They're openly hostile to them. If you look at their rankings over the years, but that Cincinnati said you have to take us, and then they affirmed that on draft night by having 9 players drafted. So I'm interested to see the challenge he faces. It's Wisconsin's been a good program for a long time, and they're going to be good. But can they be more than that? Can they be more than what they've been? Rock solid is the best way to describe Wisconsin football over the last 10 years or so. Rock solid, always, always great lines, play hard, play tough. But to get to where you're actually challenging a Michigan or challenging an Ohio State, either in a regular season game or in that Big Ten championship game, they haven't really since the league, did the championship game and split into the divisions and all that. It hasn't really been, they haven't really been that team, that program. So can he take them there? He's a great football coach, so he might be able to do that.
I'm going to interject real quickly here because I will forget to make this point too. A lot of people thought that the way Wisconsin handled Jim Leonhard and his kind of loyalty to the program was wrong. First of all, I mean, it's a business. You owe it to your student athletes and to your fans to make the best hire possible. I think also part of the reason that Chris McIntosh made the decision to go maybe outside of the program is what you just said, Mike. They've been a great program, but they want to get to the elite level. They want to compete for national championships. I think they kind of wanted to break that mold of we're going to run it down your throat. We're going to have great defense. They need to do something a little bit more explosive offensively if they want to compete with the likes of teams like Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, USC. So I think Luke Fickell, having spent the time he did at Ohio State, having been the head coach at Cincinnati, getting them into the playoffs, I think he can kind of keep that mold of we're going to be great defensively, but we're going to try some new things offensively that Wisconsin hasn't experimented with since the Barry Alvarez days.
In coaching changes, I wrote this last year when Louisville was talking about going and get Bruce Pearl. It was a fantasy. It was never going to happen. And Bruce Pearl was like, yeah, I'll take more money from Auburn, which he got. But this was not that kind of reach. I mean, Cincinnati, even though they're going into the Big 12 next year, they don't have they obviously don't have the wealth now of Wisconsin and the Big 10. And look what it's going to be when the new contract kicks in. The disparity is going to be significant. So Wisconsin was calling a lesser school, not an equivalent school, or a school in an equivalent league. And so if you can get Luke Fickell, I mean, you got to take him. And so when they made that call, they may have thought, maybe he's not interested. But when they found out there was really serious interest, how do you not take him? It's just he's everything you'd want in a football coach. In terms of his character, in terms of how he treats his players, they love him. There's been he's been there for 6 years, and I've never heard a single bad word about him from any of his players. So I get the opportunity to get him. I just don't know how you don't do it. And I think it's a great get for the Big Ten. And it's kind of the kind of thing that we thought might happen when the TV contract became a reality, that differential is going to allow you to get the better coaches away from some of the other good leagues.
Mike, I can't thank you enough, brother. I look forward to it next week because there's going to be so much more to talk about. Every week it seems like there's just going to be a ton because it just keeps piling up, baby. Enjoy your coverage of the World Cup today. We'll all be watching as Indiana as the U.S. takes on Iran today. So
absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Mike
Thanks,
DeCourcy
guys.
From the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. Make sure you give him a follow. We've got Chronic Hoosier coming up next here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by our good friends from Barbara Pop Real Estate Services. If you're in the Louisville, Southern Indiana, Floyd Clark, Southern Indiana area, make sure you reach out to Barbara at barbarapop.com or Matt at Matt at barberpop.com. Back with Chronic Hoosier right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore. Oh, shit, Chronic. Sorry, man.
No worries. No worries. I always like listening to Mike.
Oh, me too.
Mike is so smart about everything.
Well, yeah. We've got Mike Davis coming on after you, brother.
That's a big get, man. That's awesome.
Mike and Mike.
You know what? When John messaged me this morning about him coming on, I started thinking about last time I saw Coach, got to talk to Coach. Antoine was still in diapers. Like, it's crazy. It's literally crazy. Just how far we've all come, but especially that family in particular, and where they find themselves now. Good Lord knows we could use Antoine shooting.
Well, you're welcome to stay on. He's supposed to be on at 9:50.
No, man. That's all you guys. I got to jump on some training here in a little bit. I still got to get some stuff done up before we do that, but I will be listening.
We'll make it quick for you then. Looking forward to it. Yeah. Antoine's still killing it, though, too.
I know.
I need to look up scoring. Where is he in scoring? NCAA.
Let's look at the Titans here.
He's second right now.
Wow.
It's just amazing. But you always knew that was in the cards, man. Watching him run around the floor with all those guys back then. I mean, that was his playground. Assembly Hall was literally Antoine's playground as a kid.
Second in the country in scoring.
Coach Davis always had a real open family style to it. It was awesome. I used to go and do work during practices at the scorer's table. BJ McElroy would let me in, and I'd literally just set up shop and pretend like I was working and watch them run the whole afternoon. It was best days.
All right, here we go.
Advance Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advance Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advance Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at indyhomepros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. I hope everyone's doing wonderfully. We are, because we've got Chronic Hoosier with us. Chronic, how's it going, my friend?
Doing great. Glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Big week for Indiana. Another great weekend for Indiana athletics. Not quite as great as the one previous. Indiana losing on the football field to Purdue. The women's volleyball team split a pair that left them just one game under 500, and potentially cost them making the tournament. But a great year for Steve Aird and the volleyball program. The men's soccer program have moved forward in the NCAA tournament, vanquishing Team Euro the other night. So went and saw that, enjoyed that. And then, of course, women's basketball, of course, up to number 5. But then tomorrow night, of course, the big game, Indiana taking on North Carolina. And even though that North Carolina has lost, I don't care. It's still going to be a gigantic game. This is the team that was the reigning runner-up to the national championship, and they're damn good.
Yeah, no doubt. It's Carolina week in Bloomington. You got men with Carolina in the hole on tomorrow. Women host them on Thursday, and then the soccer team heads down to Greensboro to play UNCG on Saturday. So it's all Carolina all week long.
That's true.
And Lord knows we needed to wash the taste out of our mouth from the bucket game. in that season, but it's first time in program history. You've got 2 top 10 ranked basketball teams in Bloomington. Just a massive, massive week here for the Hoosiers. Cannot wait. And, more than anything, too, can't wait to put some shine back on that women's team after that debacle out in Vegas here this last weekend. But it's been kind of heartening to see the national response to it at all different levels.
Yeah, you talked about Indiana having some top 10 basketball teams, Chronic, and I just look around the state, and I know Indiana fans aren't going to like this, but having 2 men's programs in the top 10, and then having the Indiana women's team in the top 10, and then having the Indiana Pacers being an extremely fun team to watch. I mean, Indiana is always a basketball state, but it feels like there's almost like a resurgence. Like we're months away from this. I'm already giddy at the thought of the 2 Purdue Indiana basketball games. I just think that basketball is always king in Indiana, but it feels like even more so this year because the Indiana on the men's side is back to that national prominence. I mean, obviously we'll figure some stuff out right in this next 5 games, but man, it's a fun time I think it's going to be a fun winter throughout the state.
No doubt, and the Pacers didn't have a lot of expectation. People hoping for them to tank. They're currently sitting at the 4 spot right now in the East. Yep. Purdue, everybody thought was going to have a down year. Just had one of the biggest leaps in AP history. They
could be the best team in the Big Ten. They could
possible. And that's the thing, though, is that's back on the table now. And as you were just saying, everything is better when basketball is good across the board in Indiana. Yeah. As much as we love to celebrate the rivalry, there's just been so many years here in the last couple of decades where it's just been massively lopsided. And I think for the benefit of the game, the benefit of the league, it's so much better when it's competitive, when it's not kind of a foregone conclusion who's going to win. And we're definitely there. I can't wait to see him. Everybody thought Carolina was going to be the biggest ticket in town this year, and while that's certainly going to be the case for the non-conference portion of the schedule, those 2 games between the Boilers and the Hoosiers in conference play are going to be absolutely insane. No matter what happens between now and then, the fact that the conversations are being had right now, I think the energy, the enthusiasm is going to be enough to sustain the hype once those days do come. And quite frankly, you look towards the end of the schedule, that game at Mackey could very well be determinative of Big Ten standings come the end of the year. So just a whole lot of stakes in play right now for basketball teams across the state. But all that said, you've got a massive one coming tomorrow with Carolina at home. Of the 4 quality opponents in the non-conference schedule, this is the only home opportunity that the Hoosiers are going to have. So they absolutely, I think, have to capitalize on this one against a very, very dangerous and wounded North Carolina team. We cut a pod with Zach and Tyler Tackman last night for Mind Your Banners. Just a quick preview pod for it, and I fully expect this is going to be the best game that Carolina's played all season. And I know a lot of folks are quick to write them off right now after they just had the largest drop in AP poll history from 1 to 18. I think Hubie Davis is going to have these guys keyed in and trying to find themselves again, having all the success they enjoyed last year. Tyler made a great point. This is still pretty much the exact same team that spoiled Coach K's final game at home, that ended Coach K's career. This team loves to play the villain, and don't get me wrong, they are never going to feel more villainized. I know that Carolina Duke rivalry gets celebrated to the nth degree. I'm telling you right now, though, Carolina will never have felt the energy, the negative energy towards them, than they will tomorrow when they step foot on Branch McCracken Court at Assembly Hall.
That's true to that. And I think North Carolina got a lot better, as most teams do, but they got a lot better last year toward the end of the season. So probably hasn't seen the best of them just yet, but that's partly because they're so thin. And by thin, I mean, they don't go deep, man. I jokingly said they go about 6.5 deep, but I'm not far off. No. Their starters are where all the minutes come from. All the starters all average over 30 plus minutes a game. You've only got 2 guys
that are off the bench that average more than 4 points. Indiana has 7 guys coming off the bench that average 4 points or more. So I just can't. North Carolina it seems like they're almost going to have to play perfect games night in and night out to where they don't get their starters in any trouble, and their starters don't have off nights because they don't seem to have very much margin for error.
No, and this is one of the opportunities I think for Indiana to really maximize its leverage with its depth right now. And I think it's going to have to start on the defensive end. For a team that has so far been pretty reliant, with the exception of probably the Jackson State game, IU has really needed their reserves to come in and kind of get them locked in right after the tip here. And they've generally done that by setting the tone defensively, and that spilled over to the offensive edge. I think Woodson's absolutely going to have to rely on that energy, hopefully from the starters to bring it from the jump. But, for a team that is as thin as they are on the bench, it's a great chance to get them running, to get them tired, and to try to leverage his depth right now, and just asking those guys to go out and absolutely empty the tank until it's their time to come back and sit down, knowing we know full well what that feels like to play multiple games, 4 games in a week. Carolina's coming off of the time zone travel. You cannot discount how much that impacted Indiana when they went out to Portland last year. Well, now the Tar Heels are doing kind of that reverse commute, having come from Portland back to the Eastern time zone here in a pretty quick turnaround. I think it's a great opportunity for Indiana to see just how fatigued those legs are, and hopefully try to exploit that over the course of 40 minutes.
We certainly will, and I cannot thank you enough. Looking forward. Up next, we're going to talk to Coach Mike Davis, former Indiana basketball coach Mike Davis. He's got his 400th win up at Detroit Mercy. Man, I know you're a fan of Coach Davis's.
Massive fan. I'll tell you, to this day, my daughter still has an autographed picture of Coach Davis hanging in her bedroom that he was kind enough to give to our family back when he was still in Bloomington when she was born. Just think the world of him. Can't express just how happy we are to see him continuing to have success and his whole family having success, with Antoine, just an absolute star up there at Detroit Mercy.
Lights it up, baby. Lights it up.
Yes, he does. And like we were saying before the jump, last time I saw Twan in person, man, that kid was still in diapers. So to see him at the top of the NCAA scorers charts, the top of the Horizon League, just warms my heart. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Couldn't happen to a nicer family. And love the fact that he's still in a position where he can embrace the love from IU fans, because I know there is a ton of it for him here.
I'm telling you, he's, of course, besides Coach Bob Knight, he's got to be the most well-liked former IU coach that there is, period.
And that's just, I think that's a perfect way, considering all he went through when he was here, because I know it was not easy for Coach. It was not easy for his family assuming that role, but he did it with grace. He did it with class, and has exuded nothing but ever since he took the job from that point forward. So much love to Coach Davis and the whole Davis family.
I agree. That's why I sent out a tweet when he got to 400. I said, these may be the 400 most hardest earned wins in the history of NCAA basketball. And it's true, but we got to let you go so we can get to him. Chronic, thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you. We'll look forward to talking to you next week.
We'll catch you next week, guys. Take care.
You bet. Hey, we got to take a break because Mike Davis will join us next, former IU basketball coach, now up at Detroit Mercy. Back with more, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda, right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Hey, this is John.
Hey, Coach, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How you doing?
Great. Great to see you again.
Good to see you guys.
Got the red on, man. What color is Detroit Mercy's colors?
Red and blue.
Okay.
He's got the logo on the hoodie.
I'm just curious. Yeah. I'm going to get me some Detroit Mercy stuff.
Hey, Coach, can you flip your phone sideways for us?
Like this?
There you go.
Oh, look at that. It's all beautiful now, man. Looking good. How's Detroit Rock City treating you?
It's good. It's just cold all the time and cloudy, dreary. It's just, it's different. It's a different city.
Yeah, it's the cold, man. The cold is what I couldn't take, especially from you. You're an Alabama boy.
I'm an Alabama boy. You're right.
Oh man, yeah, yeah. I'm from Southern Indiana, and that's too damn cold, man.
It's a different cold. It's a different cold up here.
It is. It dang sure is. How's everything else going for you?
Everything's well. Everything's going well.
How's the family?
Good. My father-in-law passed away last Monday, so my wife is out in Texas with her family, and they're gonna have his services on Saturday. So we're gonna go up after we play Cleveland State on Saturday. We're gonna go spend some time with them.
Sorry to hear that.
That's okay. That's okay.
Antoine's rocking.
Yep, doing well. Doing well.
What are you looking at, Jim?
I'm looking at stats.
Oh, I thought I heard something playing in the background. I was just curious about you might be watching something.
I'm looking at stats, baby. I'm looking at numbers. That's all I do. Look at numbers. I get Detroit's schedule up here. Who you guys play next?
We have Fort Wayne on Thursday and Cleveland State on Saturday. We start our conference play. We have 2 games in conference before we continue our non-conference schedule.
All right, 30 seconds.
Cincinnati.
Go ahead and bring us back in.
Only $299. That's right. Just $299 covers your green fees for the next 2 years at Eagle Point. It includes tee times starting as early as up to 10 a.m. with 1 week in advance tee time bookings. You just cover your card fees. Now, there is a limited number of memberships available, so go to eaglepoint.com right now and get yours today.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, high atop the 18th fairway. And we are very fortunate to be joined by Detroit Mercy basketball coach, former IU basketball coach, Mike Davis. Coach, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How you guys doing?
Wonderful. Myself and Dustin Schutte here. Dustin?
How you doing, Coach?
Well.
First of all, just congratulations. Coach just knocked down his 400th win in his career, and I sent out a tweet at the time that these had to be 400 of the toughest wins for a coach to get, and I mean that because of all he had to go through and all that. So congratulations. What a great milestone.
And when you say the toughest, it's definitely the toughest 400 wins, I think, of any coach that in the history of college basketball.
I'm telling you, it's just – I mean, seriously, the position you were put in and to be here now and to hit – I know you don't think of numbers, but when you hit that 400, that's got to feel pretty good.
Well, it feels great. It feels great to know that I've had the longevity to coach this long. I've had some tough jobs, and we figured it out. Texas Southern, UAB, and even here Detroit may be the toughest job I've ever had from the resources standpoint and just being able to recruit and all that. But it's been great just to get 400. A lot of coaches never get to 400 because they never have an opportunity to coach as long as I've coached.
Dustin.
Yeah, Coach, it's hard to believe you're 23 as a head coach now. I still remember you stalking the Indiana sidelines, and congratulations on number 400. But I'm just curious, over the longevity of your career, that 23 years as a head coach, incredible run. But what have you learned about your different stops and has made you become a better head coach over your time?
Well, like I've always said this, I did everything backwards. I went from Power 5 to low major. And so I'm a mid-major, low major. And normally it's the opposite way. But I've learned patience. I learned I know what big-time basketball is. I've been able to share that with my teams that may not understand big time basketball. So I think that's been the biggest part of my coaching career, is that I can take what I've learned from Indiana all the way to Texas Southern and Detroit.
You talked about too this might be your toughest job considering the resources and recruiting and things like that. I'm curious to know, we're going through a complete transformation, not just in college basketball, but college athletics as a whole. How has things like NIL and the transfer portal, how has that affected your program?
Ask Antoine how NIL's affected things, man. He's one of the top dogs in the deal.
Well, his NIL is about sales. And so it looks good on paper, but, sales is the most important thing for him. And he really hasn't sold a lot about it. He had basketballs, chocolate bars, and a dribbling vest. And so, it's hard. If he was at a different school, I would say like a big-time alumni base, they would probably buy it out, especially how he's playing and the things he's doing on the basketball court. But it's really hard, for him to sell things, being at this level, I think. But he's working hard at it. He's really working hard at it.
With 400 wins, is there a win that stands out along that way? I know because you have different stops, different schools, so there's different teams and different coaching groups. But is there a win that stands out along the way?
Well, the first win in the Final Four. The win to get to the Final Four and the win in the Final Four was always stand out to you, because that's the ultimate win. To be the last 4 teams to play and be the last 2 teams to play. Those 2 wins really stands out to me.
That Duke game, man, I was there for that. And I love every time I have Dane on, because I love to remind him of that, the last sequence when he fouls. Who did he foul?
Jason Williams.
Yeah. But anyway, that game down 17 in Rupp Arena. It was just perfect. You're in Rupp Arena, home of the Kentucky Wildcats, playing Duke. I was sitting there. There was some guy behind me that was a Kentucky fan cheering for Indiana. And I'm like, what world am I in, man? It was just a weird sequence, but that win was amazing. Duke was the reigning national champion. I think they were undefeated. You had Carlos Boozer and that group, and just such an unlikely group of guys to be able to do what you all did with Tom Coverdale, who's limping around, looks like something off of a movie. That's just that game. For me, it stands out. I'll tell you that personally. For one that I was at, that stands out to me as one of the all-time games I've ever been at.
Well, we had a special group. Those guys band together, and I always remember Fife saying he wanted to do something special his last year because he wanted to be remembered at Indiana. And boy, did we do something special. We made it all the way to the championship game.
And Coach, I wanted to ask, you get a unique opportunity to coach your son, and right now he's second in the NCAA and scoring and doing some really good things. What's that opportunity like to be able to coach your son? Do you have to find a balance between being head coach and being father, or how do you balance that? And what's the opportunity like to be able to coach him?
Well, it's tough because whenever a father's coaching his son, the name of it is daddy ball. And so people think it's daddy ball, but I've been coaching for 30-some years as a head coach and assistant coach, and I've coached a lot of really good players, but I never coached a player that the defense is just unbelievable the way they guard it. I mean, it's unbelievable. 2-3 guys. Whenever I watch a film of an opposing team before a game, I would just throw it out the window because they're not going to defend him like that. But the most proudest thing I am for him is he has over 500 assists. And people don't even talk about that, even notice that. And he has 500 assists, and he's got a chance to be the all-time lead assist record here at Detroit. I think he may be, if he get to 3,000, he may be the only guy in the history of basketball that has over 3,000 points and 500 or 600 assists to his name. So I think that's really overlooked. But it's difficult coaching because it's, as a father, whenever you have a kid participating in something, you're a little nervous about the situation they're in, and you're always pulling for him. But he's the ultimate team player. He's probably one of the best team guys that you'll be around. And he could go up and jack up a lot of shots. We need him to shoot a lot of shots, but the 500 assists speak for itself.
Well, and a guy that shoots as good as he does, he's going to be playing somewhere next year, but it won't be with you. He won't be around you for the first time and probably his whole life, man. I mean, he could, whether it's, playing in the NBA or overseas, he's going to be somewhere, man. That's going to be a big difference for you.
Going to be a big difference. I don't think the world has ever seen him shoot the way he's really capable of shooting the basketball, just the way the defense really focus on him. When you watch college basketball, especially at the Power 5, they all play really good defense, but they play the basic defense. They in help side. You can't be in help side guarding him. You can't go on the ball screen guarding him. You can't not get the ball out of his hands when he come off a ball screen. So once he leaves here and he goes somewhere else where he's not the best player on the team, he'll get a chance to really shine because of the things that he can do on the basketball court.
Now, once he does move on, and I'm not suggesting you will, but do you have any Pete Ass desire to move up to a bigger program, to try to make a run again at Power 5?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot. I also been asked the question of, would it be my last year coaching? I love coaching basketball. And, when you hear people say good things about you, it makes everything make sense. So sometimes as head coaches, you go through struggles and you feel like you don't have an impact, not on just winning, but on the players. And the young kids these days are different from what the Cal Hornsby and all those guys was when I coached at Indiana. But when you hear good things, you feel good about it. And I want to make an impact here at Detroit if I can. There's a lot of things that need to be changed here, and hopefully we can get it done, over the next couple of years. But I just love coaching basketball.
And I was going to ask, that kind of leads into my next question, Coach. Been there a couple years now. What do you really like about this Detroit Mercy team? What do you like about your team right now, now that we're a couple games into this season?
Well, we have our best team we've had here. We have one player that hadn't played yet, and he's really good. He's a first-team all-conference player, I feel. But I made a big mistake in scheduling. We played 2 games in Florida, played Dusty May, former guy who worked with me at Indiana. And it was funny because he said, man, we playing a whole week to defend Antoine, a whole week, a full week. So we play those 2 games. And then we fly back here to Detroit and played Charlotte, won by like 25, I think. And then we flew out the same day to go to Spokane and play Washington State. So we had played 4 games in 7 days, but in 3 different states. And that time change just really, really hurt us. And during the game, we was walking in mud. It wasn't even a game because we had like a 5-hour flight out to Spokane, 2.5 to Denver, and 2.5 to Spokane from Denver. So it was really tough. But I feel like this is the year that we can win and get to the NCAA tournament.
How much of an impact do you have on making those schedules, those non-conference schedules?
I have a lot, but we couldn't find games. We try to get involved with a lot of games, and everybody kept saying the same thing. We don't want to play you guys. We don't want to bring Antoine in our gym, and he scored 40 points. And, well, when we're Detroit, and you're a Power 5, so if Antoine can beat you by himself, there's something wrong. But, that was really hard for us to schedule. So when I jumped on the schedule for the 4 games in 7 days, I wasn't really factoring in the time change. I felt like if we flew out the day and we played, they'd give us Thursday kind of rest before we get their Wednesday, give us Thursday kind of rest. But the time change really took a lot out of us.
Demezy Anderson, former IU player, up there playing for you now.
He can really shoot the basketball. He's doing well. He hadn't played in 2 years, so he's playing like it took him a while to get going when we first started practicing. And first scrimmage game, he wasn't that good. And we went to Boston College. He played really well in Boston College. So he's been up and down, but he has the potential to be good at this level.
Here's a great question. What about a future game or exhibition between Detroit Mercy and Indiana?
Well, I wanted to bring Antoine back home.
Man, they didn't want nothing to do with that, did they?
He was born in Bloomington. I was trying to get into the MTE event that you guys just played with Jackson State and Little Rock, and I'm not sure who the other team was.
Yeah.
It was the MT. Yeah, so we tried to get in that, but I think we were just probably a day or two too late to get in it.
Oh man, that would have been incredible. But still, so it's open to maybe Detroit coming into play sometime.
Well, I wanted to bring in Torn. Now,
yeah.
Now
I don't care.
He was born in Bloomington. He was born in Bloomington, so
that would have been pretty special.
Oh,
yeah,
man,
that would have been
special.
pretty cool. Do you talk to Coach Woody at all? Do you know him?
I know him, but I haven't talked to him. I know him personally. When I was the head coach at Indiana, he came down a couple of times, and I followed his career at the Knicks and now at Indiana.
The current IU team, I think we're ranked in the top 10. They've got a heavy, deep schedule coming up where they play Kansas and Arizona. They play North Carolina tomorrow night. I know that you're busy watching your own team, but man, that's a brutal preseason schedule.
I understand it. Trust me, I've been there before.
I'm sure you don't miss those kind of. I mean, how hard is it to get up to play those kinds of games at this juncture of the season?
It's tough if you don't have a team that is totally bought into what you're preaching and what you're trying to do, and understand their role as a basketball player. But also, it helps you to get better. But sometimes, you have to win those games, especially at that level early, because if not, everyone will be discouraged in the season. And you normally lose a season just by losing those games, just because of the mindset that, the fans and the players will get throughout the course of that. But it should help you get better for the conference tournament.
What's up? Go ahead, Dustin.
Well, I was just going to ask. I know I'm a couple days late on this, but since we didn't get you before Thanksgiving, I'm going to go ahead and ask. I'm a big food guy. What's your favorite Thanksgiving side dish or dessert? What do you enjoy during that holiday break?
Well, I can tell you this. My oldest son has got me on a special diet, cutting out sugar and meat and all that stuff. So I'm kind of vegan right now. But
oh man,
the worst thing that you can do is be a vegan. And the holidays come around.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And never stay in the DoubleTree if you're not trying to eat sweets. You never stay in the DoubleTree. So
chocolate chip cookies, man.
Man, we stayed in the DoubleTree, and this may be the nicest hotel hostess for giving out chocolate chip cookies I've ever seen in my life. How many you want? How many you want? And so I end up eating turkey and ham, and I think I may have had a dozen of chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, man, they're good. You can't pass them up. I love them. Coach Davis, I cannot thank you enough, man. As always, you are always so gracious with us and with your time, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck. We'll be following you this season. We'll catch up and follow Antoine. Hope he lights it up and gets to the top and leads the country in scoring this year.
I tell you guys just don't understand how appreciative I am just to be on and still be a part of the Indiana family and still have those conversations. So thank you very much.
You're absolutely part of it. We thank you and appreciate you, man. Have a great rest of your season, and we'll talk to you again soon, Coach.
Hopefully. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Coach Mike Davis joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're so very, very fortunate to have him join us here today. So, man, he was on with us one time with Dusty May and John Laskowski. That was a blast. But he is always so great. That was absolute blast. Yes, it was. Vegans eat turkey and ham. There you go. Well, he's got to make it work somehow. But, man, fun stuff. Yeah, enjoy that. Always enjoy Mike. I think, John, do we have to take a break?
Yep.
All right. We got to take a quick break. We'll do that. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Betterworks Brewing Company, a part of the Wild Club and Endeavor Hospitality. Make sure you go to the Endeavor Hospitality's Wild Network to sign up for the Wild Club. Start earning Wild rewards today. Betterworks Brewery, located just off the square, catty corner from Cabello Restaurant. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting,
I'd like to know what the terrible question was. Was it about the food? Because he gave a great answer. How about that?
I was thinking the very same thing. Hey, John.
Yes, sir.
I was going to suggest that I didn't know that Dustin could stay the whole day.
Well, I got.
If you were to ask about the press conference, didn't we try that before and it didn't work?
No, I don't think we ever tried it.
I know we've tried it before, whether it was with Tom Allen or Mike Woodson.
I didn't think we ever tried it.
I do have to head out now.
Okay.
So, but thank you. That was great.
That was fun. We got more coming tomorrow. Oh, you won't be here. Too bad.
I'll be here Thursday though. I'll be back Thursday.
I'll make something up good Thursday.
All right. Talk to you guys.
I thought you were. Are you off Friday then? I know you're off 2 days with us. I thought.
Yeah, it's Wednesday and Friday.
Friday. Okay, gotcha.
I'm looking for that stupid link, man.
Honestly, if we're gonna post it on our YouTube anyway, there's no reason to put it into the show unless you just don't want to.
Well, that way I can participate in the press conference. But
That's not it's not good radio, but
no. But I gotta find a stupid press conference. Oh, now I will be participating in today at 1:30. Hubert Davis.
Oh yeah.
So we should have that tomorrow because they will record that and I'll send it to you.
You don't need to send it to me. Just let me know when it's up because I can find it on YouTube.
What?
Unless it's just not on YouTube.
I don't know what they'll do with it because it's North Carolina. Where in the hell is... Oh, it's right there.
You'll have about 15 minutes to wrap things up here. Back in 30 seconds.
With Indiana Sports Beat Radio, we're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you can find complete coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and plenty more. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Hope you had a good start to your week. Man, this has been a fun one. Hope you've enjoyed it so far. What a great conversation with Coach Mike Davis. Former IU basketball coach Mike Davis just hit his 400th win. Congratulations to him. As he good start to the season. His son Antoine, currently the second leading scorer in the country, probably will be possibly the leading scorer when it's all said and done. I'll be honest with you. I did not pay attention to the coaches show last night. Peebo says everybody's supposed to be dressed tomorrow night. Well, that's usually the case. They tend to frown upon those that are not dressed at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. But I think what he is saying is in white. Yeah, tomorrow night, the whiteout for the North Carolina ball game. You'll be able to see.
I think he's referring to no one's going to be on the injury reserve list on the roster because there's been a couple guys out the past couple of days.
Yes, makes more sense. Thank you. Trey Galloway, I think he means, they've been holding him out. Hopefully, Trey Jackson Davis back to feeling as well as he can. But, definitely having the whiteout. Trey Galloway is likely to play. I'd say Indiana's going to be ready. Press conference is actually going on right now. I'll try to jump on there when I get off. If it's still happening, we shall find out. But I think this is going to be a game that North Carolina just cannot keep up with Indiana's depth.
We'll find out. Not to say that they can't, but Indiana's playing pretty well right now, and they're having more and more players play well. Tamar Bates having a good game. Jordan Geronimo having a good game. Trey Galloway having a good game. When you have when these reserves having good games, that just makes you deeper. That just makes you tougher to get past, because it's just you get past this guy and then there's another one. And that's going to be a problem for teams like North Carolina this year when they're having any kind of issue where it's a guy being dinged up or foul trouble. They don't have that next guy that they can count on. And so that makes them weaker every time they do that. But we should have a good indication of where this Indiana team is. I know a lot of fans are thinking it's going to be a blowout. Man, that is the last thing that's on my mind. This is going to be a blowout. Will it? Could it ever? Of course it could be. It could get to that way depending on the situation, depending on the scenarios at the end, but that is not at all what I'm expecting. North Carolina has too much talent. They're good. Yeah, they're coming into Assembly Hall, but do you think that they haven't played in tough environments? Are you kidding me? This team played in the national championship game last year. They play in a 23,000 seat arena. So, yeah. Jet lag. I'm kind of over the jet lag thing. I mean, unless you're playing 4 games in 7 days, like Mike Davis was just talking about. You're young, man. You overcome that stuff.
They actually have. It would be 4 games in 7 days because they did 3 in a row with the Phil Knight, whichever one they were part of, the Invitational or the Legacy.
Well, they are going to be pretty damn tired then. I'm not going to lie to you. I'd be pretty tired. I'm not going to lie. And then to go on and then to play in the environment they're going to play in, they're going to play in the toughest environment that they're going to play in all season when they come to Bloomington. They will not go to another arena this year where there will be a tougher environment. Not Cameron Indoor Stadium with their little 8,000-9,000 people. Not Virginia. Not, they're just, this is the toughest road environment they will play in, period. That includes the NCAA tournament. So this is going to be tough go for North Carolina. And that's right. Plus, they not only have they played 4 games in 7 days, Jeffrey points out, they basically almost played an extra game against Alabama with 4 overtimes. The game and a half. How long is an overtime period? 5 minutes. So that's an extra half. That's a game and a half. Rudy thinks it's going to be a close game, but he's got the Hoosiers by 4. Let's see. Robert thinks it's going to be a last second deal. I think it's going to be a good game. But I think that Indiana is just too good, too deep. And I think that it will be a game that Indiana wins by maybe 8 or 10, but that won't be until late. It won't be until late. North Carolina knows where they're coming into. But North Carolina is also North Carolina. They have pride. Hubert Davis played on those teams, but he also has great respect for Indiana. So they're going to want to come in here and play the absolute best that they can. It's North Carolina. They want to play North Carolina basketball. 5 Lefts thinks Indiana wins by 5 to 8 points. That sounds exactly right in there. Leslie says Baycott is a step slow right now with a sore ankle. She was looking forward to him and TJD matching up. Well, that makes it even worse for them if he's slower, because he is going to get pounded on. If it's not Trace Jackson Davis, it'll be Malik Renew or Jordan Geronimo or Race Thompson. Who knows? That's something North Carolina doesn't have either. Cameron Indoor? Absolutely. Rudy, the boxer asking, is it tougher? He meant Cameron Hall, Cameron Indoor. Absolutely. They have like 9,000 people there, dude. 9,000. Indiana has twice that. It's twice as loud. It's the noise is, see, that's the thing. It's the noise. The players on the floor, they can't communicate. Who was the kid from Duke a few years ago? The guy that tripped everybody.
That would be Grayson Allen.
Yes. Was asked about how loud was it on the floor. And he said, well, when you got a guy 5 feet away from you and you still have to use hand signals, that's loud. And he was talking about playing the last time Duke played at Indiana. So there's that. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be one hell of an environment. Who's going? Are you wearing white? I might wear a white dress shirt, but I'm going to wear a sports coat over it. It'll be funny. You will be able to easily spot the media at the North Carolina game, because they will be the ones not dressed in white, with the exception of there's one I will guarantee you that will be. And it's not a student. But and then the North Carolina people. So the little bit of blue, all white, and then the other stuff, that'll be the media guys. Pete says 4,000 students sitting up front row. Where are you talking about, Pete? At Assembly Hall? See, that's the thing. Assembly Hall does not utilize the student population. That's the difference between Assembly Hall and Cameron. There you go. Yeah. Oh, yeah, at Cameron. Yeah, they've got the 4,000 students sitting right front. It is tough. But it's just not as loud. It's the noise. You just can't make that building is not built for the noise. But Assembly Hall is designed in that fashion. And man, oh man, the noise comes raining down. It's two theaters facing each other. Looking forward to it. It's going to be fun, but there's a lot of other games going on in the Big Ten ACC Challenge as well. This is the last one, by the way. Don't forget about that, right?
Yeah, this is it for the Big Ten ACC Challenge, because next year it will be the ACC SEC Challenge.
Yep.
Is this also the last year for the Gavitt Games, or is that still going to keep going?
I don't know, but it's the last season for the ACC. No, it's the last season for the SEC Big 12
Challenge. Correct.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the schedule
for Indiana basketball.
So this has already started then. Minnesota?
Yeah, the ACC went 2-0 yesterday against the Big Ten. They honestly played it was probably just, the opening battle of the bottom dwelling teams from each conference, because Minnesota's not very good, Northwestern's not very good, and they lost to Virginia Tech and
on
Pittsburgh,
the road
respectively.
Yeah, Virginia Tech was playing at home, and where did Pitt play?
Northwestern was at home.
Okay, so
the ACC with the early 2-0 lead on the Big Ten in the final iteration of the challenge.
And then the rest of the games, Maryland at Louisville, there's no way Maryland loses that game.
I tell you what, though, I fear for the team that gives Louisville their first win because they're going to get somebody eventually.
Let me tell you who it's not going to be. It is not going to be Maryland.
I don't know. I agree with you there. I fear to be the team that ends up being. You don't want to be that team. Because both, I don't know if you knew this, but Louisville and California are both 0-7. Apparently that hasn't happened in over a century in a team starting off 0-7. And 2 teams did it this year.
Penn State at Clemson, 7 o'clock. Both are 7 o'clock tonight. Syracuse at Illinois, Georgia Tech. They don't even say who they're playing. Wake Forest at Wisconsin and Virginia at Michigan. There's you got. Man, what a great day. I cannot thank everybody enough. Dustin, of course, Schutte for always joining us, co-host. Mike DeCourcy from Sporting News and Big Ten Network, Chronic Hoosier as well. And Mike Davis, Coach Mike Davis, former IU basketball coach Mike Davis, joined us. Great time was had by all. Cannot thank him enough for always being so gracious with us with his time. We appreciate him so much. Tomorrow, another big show for you coming at you. Scott Davenport, Coach Bellarmine, who has a lot of Indiana players on his team. Also, Jay Billis, who's doing the North Carolina game tomorrow night, will join us. Of course, Rick Bozich, Bob Kravitz as well. Big day coming tomorrow, so make sure you join us. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle, and I thank you guys enough. As always, without you, we have no reason to be here. Thanks to John, the producer, for keeping the wheels turning. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.